Hi, I'm Sarah Wilder, and this is part 34 of Surviving the Man I Married. In the previous two episodes, part 33B and part 33C, I shared a reading with my psychic medium, Peter, within days of me moving back to Utah after a 2 month, about a 9 week absence because I'd left my husband, Jim, under emergent circumstances. It was for my safety I left, and it was years overdue anyway. So, what this episode is I'm going to just follow up with after the reading stuff. And I'll just kind of look at my notes and go point by point some of the things I want to pull from that reading and talk to you a little further about. So at no point did I want to stay in Utah any longer than I had to. So I was living with Becca and her family in Northern California, and they left to go back to Chicago. They got a job transfer. But when I went back, it was tentative. It was never going to be a permanent. I had to manage the sale of our townhome because Jim was not only not helpful, other than keeping it clean and show ready, that he could manage. Other than that, he was very difficult to deal with. And the reading talked a lot about that. There are many people rooting for us in the unseen world. And so every time I get a reading, I go into it approaching it with wide open mind and receiving what they tell me. I don't always take the advice or do it, but I am receptive. So, okay, so it was a temporary situation. Moved back the first week of September. I was just wanting to get the divorce done, get the house sold, and get out. Selling the townhome with difficult Jim about a month after this psychic reading. So in October, I had to give Jim a harsh ultimatum over selling the townhome because he had become such a hindrance. There was a lot of interest in it. I knew when I bought it, we may not live there forever, but I always intended on keeping it and probably eventually renting it out. That was my goal. That townhome was location, location, location. Anyway, so Jim was refusing to sign a listing agreement with the realtor I hired because he was holding out for me to move back in. So I let Jim know my rights under the law, that if he remained in the townhome, he would need to buy my half at market value, which at that time represented a 45% increase in value from the time I purchased it, which was exactly 3 years earlier. So I made a 45% profit on the house in 3 years. Okay, so he said he would never be able to afford it. No surprise there. And he'd need to rent out the other two bedrooms in order to swing it because he was also giving me half of his pension every month. And he acted like that was a goddamn favor. I put him through two police academies, man, and I raised three kids on my own for 8 months during that second academy. The first academy was 10 months. So I put in my time. Anyway, so I told him, nope, you know what? I'm not giving you my consent. I own half the house. My name's on the deed, and I don't give you consent to rent the other rooms out. It's not going to happen. We're going to sell the house. Either he buys it and figures out how to pay for his half, or we sell it and we both make a good amount of money. 1 week later, he signed the listing agreement. About 2.5 months later, the townhome finally sold. It sold late December. Okay, so no trad Mormon life for Jim Hole. Spirit mentioned about Jim and how, I'd had several readings where it talks about how Jim regarded our life and our marriage and stuff. And psychic medium Peter said that Jim actually hated his life and would have done so regardless of who he married. It didn't matter who he married. Um, and when I heard that, I was both relieved because, oh, it really wasn't me. It wasn't me. But I was disgusted. I was relieved at being indemnified in his self imposed misery and disgusted at his incapacity to appreciate our beautiful, intelligent, funny family. Our children were funny and interesting. They're my best friends. They're my four best friends, and they're very interesting. I always tell them that. And they're exceptional women. Of course, he couldn't identify with that. He was too busy being threatened by us. Okay, so Spirit again mentions EMDR and hypnotherapy. Um, I did not get either of those things. Root chakra cleanse, I did do. And I'm not sure if Spirit mentioned that, but I went and got a root chakra cleanse. It wasn't for lack of trying the EMDR and the hypnotherapy. So right before I left Utah, I had a great therapist in Highland, up there in Highland, and she was terrific. But two things happened. Um, Jim started stalking me in January, so I knew it was probably not going to be tenable to stay there. And B, at the end of January, when the divorce was final, I lost my insurance and mental health coverage. So I was paying out of pocket. And so I ended up moving in March, and that was that. But she was terrific, and she did a lot of trauma therapy. She was like an old hippie, a little older than me, and a hippie like me, and I loved her. So I came here to Illinois and I spent 6 months with the therapist who promised me she was certified in EMDR and trauma therapy. She ended up being a big fat fraud. 6 months, $300 a month, nothing. And when I fired her and let her know in a text, because I want it to be documented, that why I was letting her go and ceasing therapy is because there was no progress. But it's not off the table. I know I need EMDR and hypnotherapy, and I'm open to it. I'm just kind of waiting for the universe to just drop someone in my path. Mindfulness meditation, I did do that anytime I felt anxiety or sadness well up. I would take a minute or as much as 30 minutes to calm myself, to recenter, refocus on being present in the moment. And I still do that. Let's see, cutting cords, love and light, and an apology. It talked about those things. Spirit talked about me doing those things eventually. So, yes, I did do all of those things, even apologizing to Jim in a meditation. After employing a beautiful deck of oracle cards that Rachel got me after my first root chakra cleanse, I learned to do what Spirit advised. I fully cut cords with Jim, and I also sent him kind, compassionate thoughts, even apologies for any role I played in causing him misery or pain. In order to do that, and go back to my episode where I teach you about cutting cords, I tell you, I had to imagine him as an infant or a young child, a toddler, when he was being victimized by his parents, suffering terrible childhood harm. Spirit has told me repeatedly. So that's not okay. He didn't have a choice. That was foisted upon him. So I went back to that Jim and I sent him lots and lots of love. And I used my mother heart to do so. And I meant it though. I had to go to a place where it was sincere. One of the best things that I discovered after all that, after getting to that place of literally love and light, is how light I felt afterwards. I really did. After a meditation where I did something like that, where I did the work, um, I felt closer to spirit, and I've been able to receive subtle messages and guidance on my own. My new lawyer. Spirit talked about my new lawyer, Tyler from Tennessee. He turned out to be worth the investment because there's no way I could have navigated the complicated divorce filings necessary to keep up with Jim's 3 lawyers. In November-ish, however, this is a validation of something Spirit said in that reading. In November-ish, I noticed a distinct shift in Tyler's attitude towards me to a softer, more sensitive demeanor. I only saw Tyler from Tennessee one more time after that time in November, where he prepped me for mediation. I saw him in late December after the grueling 3-hour mediation. He told me how proud he was that I'd managed to accomplish all of my negotiating goals and to formally secure the things that I needed from Jim. I'm Sarah Wilder. This concludes part 34. I hope you'll come back for part 35A, B, C, and D. I'm going to talk about September, and you're damn right, it takes 4 episodes. It starts off as Send Help September, and it ends with Self-Destruct September. I'm in my worst form, and I mean my worst form. It's some of the worst behavior, if not the worst of my life. So I hope you'll join me for the train wreck.